And please welcome to the stage, Lucy Moses.
Good evening. So my son is in the audience, and it's a good thing because it's time for him to learn the truth about how Luke really died. So 10 years ago, I volunteered to be a foster mom for orphaned squirrel. I did my training at the Urban Wildlife Rescue Center and waited for the call. And early spring, it happened. Somewhere, a baby squirrel fell from a nest, and he was placed with us. And we called him Luke. When Luke arrived, he was 3 weeks old, and a 3-week-old baby squirrel is really tiny, doesn't have any hair, his eyes are fused, his tail is like a rat tail. It's the cutest thing ever. So it needed to be fed with a little syringe with a rubber nipple, like little puppy formula, every 3 hours, and it needed warmth. So I kept it in my hand or in my pocket, brought it to work on the little heating pad, I kept it on my lap when I was working. And about a week later, a second squirrel was placed with us, and we called him Busta Nuts. And Busta he was a few days younger, but he was bigger than Luke. We could tell he was going to be a big guy someday. And they got along great. Everything was going great. Luke was a little more delicate. He got pneumonia, then he got diarrhea, which was really smelly and embarrassing at work, but we made it work, and he got over it. And then he would do this thing that he would start screaming in pain, like something was really bothering him. So I called Lila from the Urban Wildlife. I was like, I don't know what's going on. He just starts screaming suddenly. She's like, oh, I know what that is. Can you really look at them closely and let me know if maybe Busta is biting him? I was like, biting him? I mean, those guys love each other. Why would they? So I paid attention, and yeah, Busta was biting him on the penis. And she was like, oof, yeah, it's a common problem with orphan baby squirrels, where basically Busta is looking for his mom's nipples, and there is no mom, so he found something else, and it's bringing him comfort, but it's not so nice for Luke. I mean, those squirrels have very sharp teeth. I was horrified. I was like, what do I do? She's like, well, don't worry. It's just a phase. Just keep them apart. Okay, so I keep them apart, but that didn't work because they were really missing each other. They were just like whimpering and looking for the other one. I couldn't do it. So I put them back together and no, that doesn't work either. So I had an idea. I know how to sew. So I took a little piece of felt, a thread and a needle, and I sewed little squirrel underpants. And let me tell you, baby squirrels do not like to be put in underpants. So I'm trying to squeeze Luke in his little squirrel underpants, and he just wiggles out. So I had to improve on my design. I took another piece of felt and really wrapped it around the tail, and then sewed it really tight, and now it was a full-on squirrel chastity pants. So I put them together, and Busta would try to nuzzle, but it didn't get anywhere. It stayed on. Perfect. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It would get dirty, it would fall off after a bit, but she was right. After a while, they seemed to grow out of it, and they also grew big enough that they had their own cage now. So I wasn't carrying them around anymore. They had a big cage, and there was branches and fruits and nuts, and they were just, doing their own thing, and they seemed to have forgotten about this whole thing. And then we put a little hammock in the corner with a little fleece blanket, and this was kind of their happy place where they could go sleep. But then we noticed that the hammock would be bouncing and rocking. And so we took a peek, and the sucking was still going on. Except that now, Luke seemed to be enjoying as well. So we figured that Busta learned not to use his teeth. And now it was consensual, so we figured it's okay. Just whatever rocks that little hammock, we don't care. And a couple of weeks after that, they graduated with an even bigger cage. This one, it was in the garden. It was 6 feet by 6 feet by 4 feet. Another volunteer came and helped them to build it. And at this point, you're supposed to kind of let them become wild. You're not supposed to interact with them anymore. So we just kind of let them be. And 2 other squirrels from another volunteer came and stayed with them. And Luke And the other two squirrels, I couldn't really tell them apart. They were all kind of the same, scrambling in the back. Busta, I could tell apart, because like I said, he was a big bone, little squirrel, and he was more human-friendly, would come to the front when we gave them food. So it took me a while to realize that Luke was missing. I noticed there was only two squirrels in the back, so I figured, oh, he must have found a hole in the cage. So I went in the cage, looked everywhere, and I couldn't find any hole, but I found Luke's body, and he was dead in the hammock. And so I called the lady. She came and picked it up to do a necropsy, which is like an autopsy, but for animals. And she told me, I know exactly what Luke died of. He died of a bladder infection. I was like, can you even die of a bladder infection? And how can you be so sure? She's like, well, I know for sure because his bladder was very enlarged. And it was very enlarged because he hadn't been able to pee for a while, and that because his penis was all infected. And I was like, this is terrible, and I can never tell that to my kids. Because how can I tell them that they were impressionable little boys, that their pet died of excessive oral sex? But son, you're grown now, and it's time for you to learn the truth. But don't worry. Yes, love hurts sometimes, but it almost never actually kills you.